Rena's eyes fluttered open to darkness and the terrifying quiet of a dying ship. The emergency lights cast a faint blue glow across the command deck, illuminating the frost that had begun to form along the edges of the viewport. She tried to move, but pain shot through her left side, remnants of the battle that had left her vessel crippled and adrift. The Zyral battlecruiser had abandoned her 12 hours ago. 12 hours since Commander Vexus had given the evacuation order, leaving the wounded to their fate. Resources must be preserved for those who can still serve, his cold voice had declared over the comms. Rena had been too injured to make it to the evacuation shuttles in time, and no one had come looking for her. Such was the way of the Zyral. Efficiency above all else. Sentimentality was weakness. She pulled herself upright, wincing as her wounds protested. Her short, silver-gray fur was matted with dried blood around her ribcage. The thin membrane of her pointed ears trembled in the cold as she assessed her situation. Life support, failing. Communications, damaged but partially functional. Food and water, minimal. Chances of survival, approaching zero. Rena closed her amber eyes, trying to control her breathing. Panic would only deplete her oxygen faster. The ship, once a proud scout vessel of the Zyral fleet, was now nothing more than a metal coffin drifting through the void. A warrior's death, perhaps, but not the one she had imagined for herself. She reached for the emergency beacon controls with clawed fingers. The chances that anyone would respond were infinitesimal. No Zyral ship would return for a single abandoned officer, and any other species would either ignore the signal or come to finish her off. The war had made monsters of them all. Still, instinct drove her to try. She activated the distress beacon, watching as the ancient emergency protocol sent pulses of energy into the darkness of space. A cry into the void, marked with Zyral signatures that would likely repel rather than attract help. So, this is how it ends, she whispered to herself, the sound of her own voice strange in the stillness. Her tail curled tightly around her body for warmth as she settled back into the captain's chair. Minutes stretched into hours. The air grew thinner. Rena's consciousness began to drift, memories blurring with hallucinations. She thought of her childhood on the colony world of Zarketh, of running through purple fields under twin suns, before the war had consumed everything, before she had learned to hate humans and their allies. The humans, ancient enemies of the Zyral, fighting over territories and resources for generations. Stories told to frighten Zyral children spoke of human brutality, their cunning, their relentless expansion. Rena had killed many in battle, never questioning the righteousness of her cause. As her oxygen-deprived mind wandered, a sudden alert jolted her back to awareness. The communications array had detected something, a signal approaching her position. With trembling hands, she activated the scanner. A ship, moving directly toward her. Hope and fear surged through her in equal measure. Had Commander Vexus changed his mind? Had someone defied orders to return for her? The scanner completed its analysis, and Rena's heart froze. Human markings. A human vessel was responding to her distress call. This was worse than being left to die. Humans were known to take Zyral prisoners for interrogation, to extract military secrets through methods that left their victims wishing for death. Every Zyral officer carried a suicide capsule for such eventualities, but Rena's had been lost in the chaos of the battle. She tried to deactivate the beacon, to hide in the darkness, but it was too late. The human ship had locked onto her position and was closing fast. Rena's claws extended instinctively as her body prepared for a fight she could not possibly win. If they boarded, she would take as many with her as she could before the end. The communications panel crackled to life. A voice came through, speaking the universal trade language rather than the harsh human tongue. Zyral vessel, this is Captain Elias Reeves of the United Nations ship Aurora. We've received your distress signal and are moving to assist. Please respond if you're able. Rena stared at the communications panel in disbelief. Assist? It had to be a trap. No human would willingly help a Zyral. Yet the alternative was certain death as her life support failed. With nothing left to lose, she pressed the response key. This is Lieutenant Rena Valar of the Zyral Scout vessel Nemesis. I am alone and—" She hesitated, pride warring with survival, in need of assistance. There was a pause before the human captain responded, his voice betraying surprise that anyone had survived. "Understood, Lieutenant. Prepare for docking. We'll get you out of there." Rena dragged herself to the airlock, weapon in hand, a precaution she knew was futile but could not abandon. The sound of mechanical clamps engaging echoed through the hull as the human ship connected to her vessel. The airlock hissed, pressure equalizing, and then the door slid open. Light flooded in, blinding after the darkness. When her vision cleared, Rena found herself facing several humans in environmental suits, their expressions visible through their transparent helmets. There were no weapons that she could see, though surely they were armed somewhere beneath those suits. A tall human with dark skin and close-cropped silver hair stepped forward, hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. "Lieutenant Valar, I'm Captain Elias Reeves. We need to get you to medical right away." Rena's consciousness was fading, the combined effects of her injuries and oxygen deprivation taking their toll. As she collapsed, the last thing she saw was the concern in the human captain's eyes, an emotion she had never expected to see directed at someone like her. Her last conscious thought was a question that defied everything she had been taught to believe. Why would enemies break through the silence to save someone left to die? The sterile smell hit Rena's nostrils before she opened her eyes. Antiseptic, clean metal, and the unique scent of humans. Less pungent than she'd been taught in xenobiology classes, but unmistakable. She was alive, and she was on a human ship. Her body felt surprisingly pain-free, though weakness remained. She could sense the artificial gravity, slightly stronger than Zyral standard, pulling at her limbs. Medical machinery hummed softly nearby. "Our patient is awake," a female voice announced. Rena's eyes snapped open, immediately assessing her surroundings for threats and escape routes. She was in a medical bay, strapped to a bed, not with restraints designed for prisoners, but with the standard medical safety belts used during space travel. 3 humans stood nearby, an older woman in a white medical uniform, a younger woman with short auburn hair, wearing what appeared to be an engineer's jumpsuit, and the silver-haired captain she remembered from the airlock. "The sedative should be wearing off," the medical officer said. "Vital signs are stable, considering the circumstances." Captain Elias stepped forward. "Lieutenant Valar, welcome aboard the UNS Aurora. How are you feeling?" Rena tested her restraints subtly. They would be easy enough to break if necessary, which was puzzling. If she were a prisoner, wouldn't she be more securely bound? "Why am I here?" she demanded, her voice raspier than she'd expected. "Why did you save me?" The captain's expression remained neutral, but his eyes reflected something Rena couldn't quite identify. Pity? Curiosity? "We responded to a distress call." "That's what we do," he said simply. "Dr. Lin has treated your injuries. You had 3 fractured ribs, a punctured lung, and severe oxygen deprivation. Another few hours, and we wouldn't be having this conversation." Rena's ears flattened against her head, a sign of distrust that the humans probably couldn't interpret correctly. Zyral and humans have been at war for decades. "You expect me to believe you rescued me out of kindness?" The younger woman in the engineer's jumpsuit stepped forward, eyes bright with barely contained curiosity. "Not everyone considers all Zyral the enemy. I'm Chief Engineer Naomi-chan. Sorry, Naomi Takahashi. I've studied Zyral technology for years. Your propulsion systems are remarkable." "Naomi," Captain Elias warned, his tone suggesting this wasn't the time for technological enthusiasm. Rena's gaze shifted between them, confusion mounting. This wasn't at all what she had expected from human captors. Where was the interrogation? The threats? The pain? "Am I a prisoner?" she asked directly. "You're a patient," Dr. Lin corrected, checking one of the monitors. "And you need rest. Your physiology is similar enough to ours that our treatments are effective, but different enough that we're being cautious. Once Dr. Lin clears you medically, we'll need to talk," Captain Elias added. "There are questions about why a Zyral scout vessel was so far from your territory. But that can wait until you're stronger. Questions? Of course. This was merely a different approach to interrogation. Gain her trust, lower her defenses, then extract information. Rena had been trained to resist much more direct methods. She could certainly handle this. My ship, she said. What happened to it? A look passed between the captain and the engineer. We've brought it into our cargo bay, Naomi answered. Standard procedure for derelict vessels with valuable technology. I hope you don't mind, but I've been examining the damage, trying to understand what happened to you. Rena tensed. The device was still on her ship. If they found it. Your vessel sustained heavy damage, Captain Elias continued. But what's most interesting is that the escape pods were all intact. You weren't left behind because there was no way out. You were deliberately abandoned. The statement hung in the air between them, an uncomfortable truth that Rena had no desire to explain. How could she make these humans understand Zyral military doctrine? The necessity of difficult decisions during wartime? Our ways are not yours, she said finally. The strong survive. The injured are a burden. Dr. Lin made a small sound of disapproval, quickly stifled. Captain Elias's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. Well, Lieutenant, he said, you're on a human ship now, and our ways are different. No one gets left behind, not even an enemy combatant. Before Rena could respond, the ship's intercom activated. Captain to the bridge. Immediately, a tense voice announced, "We found something." Elias and Naomi exchanged a meaningful glance. "I'll be right there," the captain responded. To Dr. Lin, he added, "Continue treatment." And security measures, level 2. As he and Naomi left, Dr. Lin busied herself with adjusting Rena's medication. The Zyral officer lay still, mind racing. They had found something on her ship, possibly the device. Everything would change once they understood what it was. "You should know," Dr. Lin said quietly, almost conversationally, "that Captain Elias disobeyed direct orders from Fleet Command to rescue you. We were instructed to maintain our patrol route and avoid all contact with Zyral vessels." Rena's ears perked forward in surprise. Why would he risk punishment to save an enemy? The doctor checked a final reading before meeting Rena's gaze directly. Because some principles matter more than orders. Remember that when you're deciding who your real enemies are. With that cryptic statement, Dr. Lin departed, leaving Rena alone with her thoughts and a growing unease about the device that had been entrusted to her care. The real reason she had been abandoned in space. On the bridge, Captain Elias stared at the object displayed on the main view screen. It had been extracted from a hidden compartment in the Zyral ship's engineering section. "What am I looking at, Naomi?" he asked, voice tense. The engineer pointed to the ancient symbols etched into the cylindrical device. "It appears to be Zyral in origin, but the technology is unlike anything in our database. The power signature is unusual. Quantum fluctuations that shouldn't be possible with current technology." "A weapon?" Elias asked. "Unknown, but the energy potential is enormous. If it is a weapon, it's beyond anything we've encountered." Security Chief Marquez stepped forward. "Sir, our Zyral guest becomes a much bigger security risk if this is some kind of superweapon. Recommend immediate communication with command and enhanced containment procedures." Elias nodded slowly. "Agreed. But we maintain our medical treatment protocol. She's still a patient first. And if she was transporting this deliberately?" Marquez pressed. "If this is why her own people abandoned her?" The question hung in the air as Elias studied the ancient symbols on the device. Something didn't add up. A lone scout ship carrying a potential superweapon? A high-ranking officer abandoned so easily? "We need more information," he decided. "Naomi, continue your analysis, but exercise extreme caution. Marquez, increase security, but discreetly. I don't want our guests to feel threatened before we understand what we're dealing with." As his officers carried out their orders, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that rescuing Lieutenant Valar had set in motion events far beyond a simple humanitarian mission. They had broken through the silence of space to save a life, only to potentially endanger countless more. But even knowing what he knew now, He couldn't bring himself to regret his decision. There had been something in the Zyral officer's distress call, something that transcended species and conflict, a simple desire to live. He couldn't ignore that, regardless of the consequences. What he didn't know was that those consequences would soon prove far greater than he could possibly imagine. The dreams came unbidden, memories of fire and destruction. Rena saw again the moment when Commander Vexus had handed her the ancient cylinder, its surface etched with the sacred symbols of old Zyral. This must reach the High Command, he had told her, eyes burning with fanatical intensity. It is the key to our final victory. She had been honored to be chosen, never questioning her orders. Even when the attack came and her ship was crippled, her duty remained clear: protect the artifact at all costs. But as the evacuation began, she had seen the truth in Vexus's eyes. She was never meant to deliver the device. She was merely its temporary guardian, to be sacrificed alongside it if necessary. A disposal method that would leave no evidence. Rena awoke with a start, heart pounding. The medical bay was dimly lit for the ship's night cycle. She was alone except for a human security officer stationed by the door, who straightened when he noticed she was awake. "Water," he offered, gesturing to a container within her reach. Rena nodded, surprised by the courtesy. As she drank, her mind raced. They had found the device. That much was clear from the captain's summons to the bridge. But did they understand what it was? What could do? Did she even fully understand it herself? The door slid open, and Naomi Takahashi entered, carrying a datapad. Her expression was a mixture of excitement and concern. "You're awake. Good. I was hoping we could talk." She glanced at the security officer. Privately, the man looked uncertain. "Chief Takahashi, the captain's orders are to treat our guest with respect while maintaining security," Naomi finished for him. "You can stand outside the door." "I'll be fine." After a moment's hesitation, the officer complied, stepping outside, but leaving the door partially open. Naomi pulled up a chair beside Rena's bed. "I've been examining the artifact found on your ship," she said without preamble. "The technology is remarkable and terrifying." Rena kept her expression neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do." Naomi's voice remained gentle, but her eyes were intent. "The quantum signature is unstable. The pattern suggests it's designed to interface with something else, something massive. A trigger, perhaps." When Rena remained silent, Naomi continued. "The symbols are ancient Zyral, predating the war. I've only been able to translate fragments, but they speak of cleansing fire and final judgment. Not exactly comforting phrases when associated with a device of this power." "Why are you telling me this?" Rena asked finally. "Shouldn't you be reporting to your captain?" "I already have." Naomi studied her carefully. "But I think there's more you could tell us. Like why your own commander would abandon you with such a powerful artifact. It doesn't make tactical sense, unless the objective wasn't to transport it safely, but to dispose of it, and you along with it." The accusation struck too close to Rena's recent realization. Her tail lashed once in agitation before she could control it. "You know nothing of Zyral military strategy," she said, but the words lacked conviction. Naomi leaned closer. "Maybe not, but I know desperation when I see it. And whatever this device is connected to, it reeks of desperation, the kind that leads to catastrophic decisions." A ship-wide alert suddenly blared, cutting their conversation short. The security officer rushed back in. "Chief Takahashi, we're picking up multiple Zyral signatures on an intercept course. Battle stations." Naomi rose quickly. "This conversation isn't over," she told Rena. To the security officer, she added, "Keep her secure but safe," before rushing out. Left alone with her guard, Rena felt the ship transition to battle readiness around her. The subtle shift in gravity as emergency systems came online. The changed pitch of the engines as they prepared for potential evasive maneuvers. And with it came the crushing realization: they had come for the device. Not for her, never for her, but for what she had been carrying. Vexus would want to ensure both were destroyed, leaving no evidence of the weapon's existence, or of his betrayal. For the first time, Rena faced the truth she had been avoiding. Her loyalty had been to an ideal of the Zyril, a people of strength, honor, and tradition. But the leadership she served had abandoned those values in their desperation to win the war at any cost. They had been willing to sacrifice her without hesitation. Would the humans do the same? On the bridge, Captain Elias watched grimly as 5 Zyril warships appeared on the tactical display. "They're hailing us," Communications Officer Park announced. On screen, Elias ordered, straightening his uniform. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the cold, amber eyes of a Zyril commander. His silver-gray fur was darker than Rena's, marked with the black stripes of senior rank. An intricate scar ran from his right eye to the base of his ear, a badge of honor in Zyril culture. "Human vessel," the commander said, voice dripping with contempt. "I am Supreme Commander Vexus of the Zyril Dominion. You have illegally salvaged a Zyril military vessel and taken one of our officers prisoner. Return both immediately or face destruction." Elias maintained a neutral expression. "Commander Vexus, I am Captain Elias Reeves of the UNS Aurora. We responded to a distress call from a critically damaged vessel with a single survivor. Under interstellar law, this constitutes a rescue operation, not salvage or imprisonment." Vexus's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Do not lecture me on law, human. The Zyril Dominion does not recognize your treaties. You will comply or be destroyed. You have 10 minutes to prepare Lieutenant Valar and our property for transfer." The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the bridge in tense silence. "They outgun us 5-1, Tactical Officer Hendricks reported quietly. "Even if we call for reinforcements, the nearest UNS vessel is hours away." Elias turned to Naomi, who had rushed to her station during the communication. "The device. What would happen if they reacquired it?" The engineer's face was grim. "Based on my analysis, it's a trigger mechanism for something much larger, possibly a superweapon of ancient design. If I'm right, it could destroy entire star systems. And if they're willing to kill one of their own officers to keep it secret." Security Chief Marquez let the implication hang in the air. Elias made his decision. "We can't let them have it, and we can't abandon Lieutenant Valar to certain death." He turned to communications. "Contact Fleet Command. Inform them of our situation and request immediate support." To Naomi, he added, "Is there any way to neutralize the device?" "Possibly, but I need time and help. Someone who understands Zyril technology better than I do. Someone like our guest," Elias concluded. "Bring her to the bridge. It's time we had complete honesty between us." Minutes later, Rena entered the bridge, escorted by security but not restrained. Her amber eyes immediately found the tactical display showing the 5 Zyril warships surrounding the Aurora. "Commander Vexus," she said, recognizing the lead vessel. "I should have known. He's demanding your return, along with the device from your ship," Elias told her. "He gave us 10 minutes to comply. If you do, he will destroy this vessel anyway," Rena stated with certainty. "No witnesses can remain." "Then you understand our position," Elias responded. "We need your help, Lieutenant. What exactly is that device, and why is it worth killing for?" Rena looked around the bridge, at the humans who had saved her life only to find themselves facing death because of it. The choice before her was impossible: betray her people or allow these humans to die, humans who had shown her more compassion than her own commander. "It is called the Void Key," she said finally, "a relic from before the Great Schism, when the Zyril nearly destroyed themselves in a civil war. It was created to activate the Cleansing Flame, a network of quantum devices placed throughout contested star systems. Once triggered, they collapse space-time itself, erasing everything within their radius from existence." Shock rippled through the bridge crew. "That's genocide," Naomi whispered, horrified. "That's victory," Rena corrected, though without conviction. "At least, according to the High Command. They believe it is the only way to end the war decisively, by obliterating entire populated systems." Elias's voice was tight with controlled anger. "How many lives are we talking about?" Rena's ears lowered in shame. "Billions. Perhaps more." I didn't know the full scope when I was assigned to transport the key. I was told it was an ancient artifact of cultural significance. Only when we were attacked and Vexus gave the evacuation order did I begin to suspect the truth. That you were being sacrificed to hide evidence of a superweapon, Elias concluded. Rena nodded slowly. The attack on my ship was not random. It was orchestrated to provide a plausible reason for the vessel's destruction, along with the key and any knowledge of its purpose. And now Vexus is here to finish the job, Security Chief Marquez stated grimly. 7 minutes remaining until their deadline, Tactical reported. Elias turned to Naomi. Can the key be disabled? Not easily. Rena answered before Naomi could speak. It was designed to resist tampering. But her eyes lit with sudden realization. My genetic signature. The key was keyed to my biometrics to ensure it reached its destination safely. I could potentially reconfigure it, not to trigger the cleansing flame, but to send a deactivation signal instead. How long would that take? Elias asked. Longer than 7 minutes, Rena admitted. But if we could buy time, Elias nodded decisively. Then that's what we'll do. He turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to Commander Vexus. As the view screen flickered to life once more, Rena stepped back, out of visual range. Vexus's cold eyes fixed on Captain Elias with predatory intensity. Your time grows short, human. Commander Vexus, Elias replied calmly. We're preparing to transfer Lieutenant Valar and the artifact as requested. However, our docking systems were damaged in a recent meteoroid encounter. We need additional time to prepare a shuttle. Vexus's expression remained impassive. You have 1 additional hour. No more. Any attempt to flee or call for reinforcements will result in immediate destruction. His eyes narrowed suspiciously. I wish to speak with Lieutenant Valar. Now, Elias hesitated, then nodded to Rena, who stepped into view with practiced military bearing. Commander, she acknowledged formally. Lieutenant, Vexus replied, studying her carefully. You appear to be in good health for someone we presume dead. The humans treated my injuries, she said neutrally. And did you reveal anything to them during this treatment? The question hung dangerously in the air. Rena knew that her answer would determine not only her fate, but potentially that of billions. They know nothing of importance, she answered, channeling years of military discipline to keep her voice steady. I await transport back to the fleet, Commander. Vexus held her gaze for a long moment, searching for any sign of deception. Finally, he nodded once. 1 hour, he repeated to Elias, before terminating the communication. As the view screen went dark, Rena released the breath she had been holding. He suspects, she said quietly. He knows me too well to fully believe my loyalty remains intact after being abandoned. Then we have less than an hour before he loses patience, Elias concluded. Naomi, take Lieutenant Valar to engineering. Work on reconfiguring that key. Everyone else, prepare for potential combat. Evasive patterns, emergency protocols, the works. If we can't talk our way out of this, we'll need to fight. As the bridge crew rushed to their stations, Elias turned to Rena. You're risking everything to help us. No, she corrected him. I'm risking everything to stop a genocide. My people are warriors, Captain, but this... She shook her head. This is not the Zyral way. Not the true way. Their eyes met in a moment of understanding that transcended species and decades of conflict. Then Naomi led Rena toward engineering, where humanity's fate, and perhaps that of the Zyral themselves, would be decided in less than an hour. The engineering bay of the Aurora hummed with controlled energy as Naomi and Rena worked frantically on the void key. The ancient device had been placed inside a containment field, its smooth metallic surface reflecting the harsh laboratory lights. The quantum signature is fluctuating, Naomi reported, eyes fixed on her monitors. Whatever you're doing, it's having an effect. Rena's clawed fingers moved with precision across the device's surface, pressing specific patterns on symbols that responded only to her touch. Sweat matted her fur despite the cool temperature of the lab. The key was designed with redundancies, she explained, voice tense with concentration. It must recognize my intent as authentic or it will trigger a failsafe. And what happens if the failsafe activates? Naomi asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Nothing good, Rena replied grimly. How much time remains? 38 minutes until Vexus's deadline. The intercom activated with Captain Elias's voice. Status report? Progress, but slow, Naomi answered. The technology is responding, but each security layer takes time to bypass. Understood. Keep at it. There was a pause before Elias continued. Be advised, we're detecting unusual activity from the Zyral fleet. They're scanning us with increasing intensity. I don't think they're planning to wait the full hour. Naomi and Rena exchanged concerned glances. We need more time, the engineer said. We need a distraction, Rena countered, sudden determination in her eyes. Let me speak to Vexus again. I could buy us the time we need. That's too risky, Naomi objected. He already suspects you're compromised. Exactly. His focus will be on me, not on what we're doing with the key. Rena's amber eyes burned with intensity. Trust me, I know how he thinks. After a moment's consideration, Naomi relayed the request to Captain Elias, who reluctantly agreed. While Rena prepared to face her former commander, Naomi continued working on the key, following the instructions Rena had given her. On the bridge, tension had reached a breaking point. The tactical display showed the Zyral vessels tightening their formation around the Aurora, cutting off all possible escape vectors. They're preparing to attack, Tactical Officer Hendricks warned. Energy readings suggest weapons charging. Open a channel to Commander Vexus, Elias ordered. Visual only from our end. The view screen flickered to life, showing Vexus's impatient face. Your time is not yet expired, human. Why do you call? Lieutenant Valar wishes to speak with you, Elias explained. She has concerns about the transfer. Suspicion darkened Vexus's features, but curiosity won out. Put her on. Rena stepped into view, her posture perfect military bearing, betraying none of the emotions churning within her. Commander, she began formally, I request private communication. Vexus's eyes narrowed. Speak freely, Lieutenant. The human's privacy is of no concern to me. Very well. Rena steeled herself. I have reason to believe the humans have discovered the true nature of the artifact. They've been examining it extensively. Alarm flashed across Vexus's face before he controlled his expression. Impossible. They lack the technology to understand it. Their chief engineer is more capable than you might expect, Rena continued, carefully walking the line between truth and deception. I've observed her work. She's already bypassed the outer quantum shell. This was technically true. Naomi had indeed broken through the device's first layer of security with Rena's help. What Vexus wouldn't know was that this was part of their plan to deactivate it. This changes our timeline, Vexus declared, anger barely contained. Prepare for immediate extraction. Sir, Rena interjected, the humans have placed the artifact in a specialized containment field. Any attempt to transport it prematurely could trigger a localized quantum collapse. Again, not entirely a lie. The containment field was real, though its purpose was to protect the crew rather than the device. Vexus appeared to consider this information, his tactical mind weighing the risks. How long to safely disable their containment measures? 20 minutes minimum, Rena answered, adding 10 minutes to the time she estimated they actually needed. You have 15, Vexus growled. Not 1 second more. And Lieutenant, if you're being coerced, blink twice now. It was a standard Zyral distress signal, taught to all officers as a covert way to indicate duress. Rena maintained unwavering eye contact, not blinking at all. Understand my duty, Commander, she said coldly. 15 minutes. The transmission ended, and Rena's shoulders slumped slightly as the strain of maintaining her facade took its toll. 15 minutes, Elias repeated. Will that be enough? It will have to be, Rena answered, turning to leave the bridge. But be prepared. He gave me 15, but he'll attack in 10. Vexus never fully commits to the timeline he provides. As she hurried back to engineering, Rena felt the weight of her decisions crushing down upon her. She was betraying her people her oath, everything she had been raised to believe in. Yet the alternative, complicity in billions of deaths, was unthinkable. In engineering, Naomi looked up from her work as Rena returned. Did it work? 10 minutes, Rena replied, immediately rejoining her at the workstation. Show me where you are in the sequence. Together they raced against time, Rena's clawed fingers dancing across ancient Zyral symbols while Naomi monitored the quantum fluctuations. The key began to emit a soft, pulsing glow, a sign that its core functions were being accessed. We're almost there, Naomi murmured, excitement breaking through her tension. The reconfiguration matrix is accepting your changes. Rena nodded, not daring to speak and break her concentration as she input the final sequence. The symbols beneath her fingers rearranged themselves, forming new patterns that hadn't been seen for centuries. Is it working? Naomi asked. I think, Rena began, but was cut off as the ship violently lurched to one side. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. We're under attack. Elias's voice came through the intercom. Secure the device and brace for impact. The Zyral fleet had opened fire, just as Rena had predicted. The Aurora shuddered under the assault, shields straining against weapons far more powerful than its own. We need more time, Naomi shouted over the alarms. The reconfiguration is only 80% complete. Rena made a split-second decision. Continue the sequence. I'll return to the bridge. Perhaps I can still reason with Vexus. That's suicide, Naomi protested, grabbing Rena's arm. He'll know you've betrayed them. Then I'll give him something more important to focus on than this ship. Rena's eyes locked with Naomi's. Finish the reconfiguration. It's our only hope. Rena sprinted through corridors now bathed in red emergency lighting, crew members rushing to battle stations as the ship continued to shake under repeated weapons fire. When she reached the bridge, chaos greeted her. Damage reports flooded in while tactical officers frantically worked to maintain shields and return fire where possible. Shields at 62% and falling, Tactical Officer Hendricks reported grimly. We can't withstand this barrage much longer. Captain Elias noticed Rena's arrival, but didn't have time for questions. Open a channel to Vexus, he ordered. All frequencies. The view screen flickered erratically before stabilizing to show Commander Vexus's face, now wearing an expression of cold triumph. Your time is up, human, he stated flatly. Surrender now, and your crew may be spared. Elias stood firm. Your attack violates the ceasefire of the Proxima Accord. Stand down immediately. There is no ceasefire when it comes to matters of Zyral security, Vexus replied dismissively. His eyes shifted to Rena. Lieutenant Valar, your presence on their bridge during battle suggests where your loyalties now lie. Disappointing, if not surprising. You always were too sentimental. Rena stepped forward. You left me to die, Commander. You abandoned a wounded officer against all Zyral traditions of honor. I left a liability, Vexus corrected her coldly. One who carried something too dangerous to risk falling into enemy hands. And yet here we are, Rena countered. You were willing to sacrifice me to hide evidence of the cleansing flame. A weapon that violates not just human accords, but our own ancient laws. Vexus's expression darkened dangerously. You speak of matters beyond your understanding, Lieutenant. I understand perfectly, Rena continued, aware that every second of conversation bought Naomi more time to complete the reconfiguration. The High Command has grown desperate. They believe annihilation is the only path to victory. But I've seen another way. Humans who risked their lives to save an enemy. Who showed more honor than my own commander. Enough, Vexus snarled, fur bristling with rage. You are declared Zyral Tath, outcast and traitor. Your name will be struck from the ancestral records. To Elias, he added, you have one final chance. Surrender the key, or be destroyed. We can't do that, Commander, Elias replied steadily. Then you die together. Vexus terminated the transmission. All weapons being brought to bear on us, Tactical announced urgently. Multiple missile locks detected. Elias turned to Rena. The key. Naomi needs more time to finish the reconfiguration, she answered. Time we don't have, Security Chief Marquez muttered. Actually, Rena said, a desperate plan forming in her mind. There might be a way. Captain, I need access to your communication array. Specifically, the frequency reserved for Zyral military broadcasts. Elias didn't hesitate. Do it, he ordered. Rena moved to the communication station, working quickly to establish a direct channel to all 5 Zyral vessels simultaneously. She activated the ship-wide broadcast function, ensuring that every Zyral officer and crew member would hear her words. Attention, all Zyral vessels. She began in the formal high tongue of her people, the ancient ceremonial language reserved for matters of grave importance. I am Lieutenant Rena Valar, daughter of the 3rd House of Zarketh. I speak the Vrekan, the truth challenge that cannot be denied under our oldest laws. She paused, ensuring the significance of her words registered. The Vrekan was an ancient tradition, rarely invoked but universally respected among her people. It granted the speaker the right to be heard without interruption, to challenge leadership when they had strayed from the true path of Zyral honor. Commander Vexus and members of the High Command have violated the sacred covenant of our ancestors. They have created a weapon of absolute destruction, the cleansing flame, that would eradicate not just our enemies, but countless innocent lives. This is not the way of the warrior. This is the way of the coward. On the tactical display, 2 of the Zyral vessels had ceased firing. Rena pressed her advantage. I was abandoned to die because I carried knowledge too dangerous to exist, proof of their betrayal of everything we hold sacred. The humans you have been ordered to destroy showed greater honor by saving an enemy combatant than our own leader did by abandoning one of his officers. A 3rd vessel stopped firing. Even now, the human engineers work not to weaponize the key, but to prevent it from ever being used for genocide. I stand with them in this, and I invoke the right of Tirval, judgment by the ancestors. Let any who still honor the true way of the Zyral stand down now and bear witness. The bridge crew watched in astonishment as the 4th Zyral vessel powered down its weapons. Only Vexus's command ship continued its assault. It's working, Elias breathed. The intercom suddenly activated. Captain, it's Naomi. We've done it. The key has been reconfigured to send a deactivation signal to the cleansing flame network. But there's one problem. It needs to be closer to a quantum relay to transmit successfully. We need to get within range of the Zyral command ship. Elias glanced at the tactical display, where Vexus's vessel continued to pound the Aurora's weakening shields. That won't be easy. Leave it to me, Rena said grimly. Order your shuttle bay prepared. I'll take the key myself. That's a suicide mission, Elias objected. Perhaps, but it's the only way. The other Zyral vessels won't fire on me. Not after the Vrekan has been invoked. Only Vexus will dare, and he'll have to target a small shuttle rather than your ship. Before Elias could respond, the view screen activated again, showing Vexus's fury-contorted face. This treachery will not stand, he raged. All vessels, disregard the false Vrekan and resume attack. Behind him, his own bridge crew stood motionless, many with ears laid flat against their heads in silent protest. Your own crew hears the truth in my words, Vexus, Rena replied calmly. The Vrekan cannot be denied. Then I will finish this myself, Vexus snarled. The transmission cut abruptly as his vessel broke formation, accelerating directly toward the Aurora. He's on a collision course, Tactical shouted. Impact in 40 seconds. Evasive maneuvers, Elias ordered. All power to forward shields. It won't be enough, Rena said quietly. His ship outmasses yours by a factor of 3. Elias faced her, understanding passing between them. You're still determined to go out there. It's the only way to end this. Rena straightened her back, standing tall. Have Naomi bring the key to the shuttle bay. Now, Elias gave the order, and together they raced through the corridors toward the shuttle bay, the ship lurching around them as the helmsman attempted evasive maneuvers. They arrived to find Naomi already waiting, the reconfigured void key secured in a portable containment unit. The deactivation signal will transmit automatically once you're within range of their quantum relay, she explained hurriedly, pressing the container into Rena's hands. You'll know it's working when the symbols turn from amber to blue. Thank you, Rena said, truly meaning it. She turned to Elias. Your crew saved my life when my own people abandoned me. Now, let me return the favor. Rena, Elias began. There's no time, she interrupted. Your ship cannot survive a direct collision. This gives all of us a chance. Without waiting for further discussion, she boarded the small shuttle. As the bay doors opened to the star-filled void, she looked back one last time at the humans who had shown her the meaning of true honor. Valar Tirketh Valara, she said in the ancient tongue. May the stars guide your path. The shuttle launched into space, immediately accelerating toward Vexus's oncoming warship. On the Aurora's bridge, the crew watched as the tiny vessel darted through weapons fire, Rena's piloting skills proving extraordinary as she evaded blast after blast. Vexus has diverted from his collision course, Tactical reported with surprise. He's pursuing the shuttle. Just as she intended, Elias murmured. She's drawing him away from us. The other 4 Zyral vessels remained in position, their weapons powered down, crews bound by tradition to honor the Vrekinar challenge. Aboard her shuttle, Rena pushed the engines beyond safety limits, closing the distance to Vexus's command ship. The containment unit pulsed with energy as the key sensed its proximity to the quantum relay. The symbols began to shift, amber slowly bleeding toward blue as the deactivation sequence initiated. Her communications panel lit up with an incoming transmission. You cannot stop what has been set in motion. Vexus's voice filled the small cockpit. The cleansing flame will activate with or without the key. Your sacrifice is meaningless. It's not about stopping the weapon anymore. Vexus, Rena replied, continuing her evasive maneuvers as the command ship fired relentlessly. It's about showing our people there is another way. The humans could have left me to die. They could have destroyed the key. Instead, they risked everything to save lives, even the lives of their enemies. A proximity alarm screamed as a missile narrowly missed her shuttle. The containment unit's symbols were now more blue than amber, the deactivation signal growing stronger. Your human friends have corrupted you, Vexus spat. No, Rena countered. They reminded me of what it truly means to be Zyral. Honor, courage, facing one's enemy directly, not hiding behind a weapon that destroys from a safe distance. Her sensors indicated she had reached the optimal position. The key symbols had turned completely blue, pulsing with energy as it connected to the quantum relay aboard Vexus's ship. The deactivation signal was transmitting. It's done, Vexus, she announced. The cleansing flame has been neutralized. Check your own systems if you don't believe me. There was a long pause before Vexus responded, his voice now dangerously quiet. If I cannot have victory, neither shall you. Rena's tactical display lit up with multiple missile launches. Too many to evade. Her shuttle's meager defenses would never hold. In that moment of clarity, facing certain death, Rena felt strangely at peace. She had fulfilled her duty, not to a corrupt commander or a misguided high command, but to the true spirit of her people, to the universe itself. Captain Elias, she said, opening a channel to the Aurora, the deactivation is complete. The cleansing flame can never be used. Get out of there, Rena, Elias urged. We can pick you up. No time, she answered calmly. But know this, you taught me that enemies can become allies when they share a common truth. Remember that lesson. It may yet save both our peoples. Her sensors screamed warnings as the missiles closed in. Rena closed her eyes, accepting what was to come. But the impact never arrived. Opening her eyes in confusion, she saw that 3 of the other Zyral vessels had moved into position around her shuttle, their advanced defense systems intercepting Vexus's missiles. A new voice came through her communications array, deeper, older than Vexus. This is Fleet Admiral Tirvash of the Zyral High Council. Commander Vexus, you are ordered to stand down immediately. The Vrekinar has been acknowledged and accepted. Your actions dishonor us all. On the main view screen of Vexus's bridge, visible to Rena through their still-open communication channel. The aged face of the highest-ranking Zyral military official stared down at the row commander. Admiral Tirvash's fur was nearly white with age, his amber eyes sharp with authority. "The Council has been monitoring this situation," the Admiral continued. "Lieutenant Valar's challenge has revealed truths we cannot ignore. The Cleansing Flame project was never authorized by the full Council. Those responsible will face judgment." Vexus's expression contorted with fury and disbelief. "You would side with a traitor? With humans?" "I side with Zyral honor," Tirvash replied sternly. "Something you have forgotten. Your command is revoked, effective immediately." Around Vexus, his own crew began to step away, their loyalty shifting as the highest authority had spoken. The commander stood alone, his plans crumbling around him. With a final snarl of defiance, Vexus reached for control on his command console, but never completed the motion. One of his own officers, seeing the desperate move, fired a stun blast that dropped the commander to the deck. "Admiral," the officer reported, "Commander Vexus has been restrained." "Well done," Tirvash acknowledged. "Lieutenant Valar, you are directed to return to your shuttle bay. You will be granted safe passage and full hearing before the Council." "And the humans?" Rena asked cautiously. "The UNS Aurora and her crew have demonstrated honor worthy of respect," the Admiral conceded. "They will be allowed to depart without hindrance. Perhaps," he paused, considering his words carefully, "perhaps it is time to reconsider old enmities." As Rena maneuvered her shuttle back toward the Aurora, she felt the weight of generations of conflict and the tentative promise of something new. The stars seemed brighter somehow, the void less empty. On the Aurora's bridge, Captain Elias watched her approach with a mixture of relief and wonder. "She did it," Naomi whispered beside him. "She actually did it. She showed us all a better path," Elias replied. "Question is, are we brave enough to follow it?" As the shuttle docked safely in the bay, Rena stepped out to find the entire senior crew waiting for her. There were no words needed. The shared look between her and these humans who had become more than unexpected allies said everything necessary. They had been enemies divided by stars and history. Now they stood together, united by something stronger than hate could ever be. The silence of space had been broken by voices calling for peace. 3 months later, Rena stood in the observation lounge of the UNS Aurora, gazing out at the stars. The ship had been designated as the neutral meeting ground for the first formal peace talks between the Zyral Dominion and the United Nations of Earth. Behind her, delegates from both sides engaged in cautious but progressive discussions, building on the foundation laid by her actions. Captain Elias joined her at the viewport, his reflection appearing beside hers in the transparent aluminum. "Admiral Tirvash seems genuinely committed to the process," he commented. "That's more than most of us expected." "The Cleansing Flame project shocked many in the High Council," Rena explained. "It forced them to confront what we were becoming, how far we had strayed from our principles in pursuit of victory at any cost." "And Vexus, stripped of rank and exiled to the outer colonies," she answered. "Many want a harsher punishment, but exile for a Zyral is significant. To be separated from clan and community is a fate some consider worse than death." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching distant stars. "Will you return to your people when this is over?" Elias asked eventually. Rena's ear flicked thoughtfully. "I'm still Zyral, but I've been changed by what happened. Perhaps my place is here, helping both sides understand each other." "Cultural liaison to the Aurora," Elias suggested with a smile. "I could make it official." "I would be honored," she replied, turning to face him directly. "Though I must warn you, I am a difficult subordinate. I once defied my commander and stole his shuttle." Elias laughed. "I think we can work with that." From across the room, Naomi caught her eye and waved her over to help explain some aspect of Zyral technology to the human delegates. As Rena moved to join them, she felt a sense of purpose stronger than any military duty had ever given her. She had been left to die in the silent void of space. Instead, she had found a new beginning, not just for herself, but potentially for two species who had forgotten they could be anything but enemies. The silence had been broken, and in its place, something better had begun to grow.